I read a review for a game called Please Fix the Road and decided that it sounded very much like something that I would really enjoy. So I used a facility on my Mac to be able to play Windows things, and I downloaded Please Fix the Road. And
is this PC only then?
It is PC only, and
Okay.
I really liked it. It was a really fun game. So the point of the game is essentially it's a puzzle game where you get like a diorama style scenario. You have a goal and you have a start point, and you need to essentially rearrange things in the environment with tiles that you're given to make a path for your vehicle or chosen thing to get from one end of the screen to the other. So it starts off very simple, but then just will give you different like segments of road to join together to get a car to go from A to B, but then it complicates more and more. You get given bomb tiles where you can destroy parts of the environment and then are replaced by other bits and pieces that you can build back in, and it gives you everything that you need in the order that you need to use them, which I find very handy, but it doesn't really give you many more hints than that. And at the start of the game, it sort of gradually builds your confidence in understanding the mechanics and the feel of the environment, but then it starts whipping more and more complexity at you to the point where maybe when you're about 20 or 25 in, you have to really start thinking about the order that you do things in and the way that you lay things out. And there's not always just one vehicle or thing that you have to get from one side. Some of them had two, one of them had four, which took me a good half an hour just looking at it, how I had to path out the roads to get the cars to go to their various points, multicolored cars. But it's just a really fun game that you could play for like 15-20 minutes, or like me, you could get completely invested in for a couple of hours just trying to play through it. And yeah, there's not an awful lot to it. It has elements of mini motorways and elements of mini metro to it. It has elements, I think, of Roller Coaster Tycoon, and elements of like your standard A to B pathing, puzzle game, or if you're the sort of person who like the old school, get the Hamburglar from one side of the maze to the other on the back of your Happy Meal when you were a kid, I think this game will scratch that itch as well.
I love the low poly aesthetic of it. I know it's been done in many places, but this is a really nice presentation of that. It's very clean.
I'm a real sucker for a diorama style game.
Definitely, yeah.
The only thing that I guess I was the only downside to me is you can't twist the environment. Say, I kept thinking that I could twist the environment because it as I say, it has that Roller Coaster Tycoon feel of like, here's a chunk of a scenario that you can then rotate and twist and blah blah blah. But you can't do that. You just have that one view,
which seems really weird because usually when you have something at a fixed angle, it's generally because you're just trying to hide whatever is behind it to, cut corners on like assets and keep poly counts down and stuff. But this isn't exactly like an intense game in terms of the amount of assets on the screen. So it does seem kind of like weird. And I don't see where you would gain any kind of benefit from being able to, even if it was to turn the landscape round or just to have the camera kind of like on a fixed point but goes round in a circle, like but focused on the environment. That does seem kind of like a weird omission.
Yeah, it's a sort of a weird itch that you want to do it a lot when you first play the game to give yourself a different view, but then after a while you come to accept that you don't really need to, because the way the pieces are given to you, that they're not given in a flippable format. They're given to you like, this is the piece. So if you have like a curved piece of road or a straight piece of road or whatever, they're at the angle that they need to be for you to place them. You just need to figure out how to get that placement correct so you can do it in the moves that you're given. So I think once you get your head around the fact that you can't change your perspective on your environment, it just clicks for you anyway, and you just become used to, this is the view that I get, therefore I need to solve the puzzle in this fashion. And yeah, it's a very pleasant experience. It's exactly the sort of thing that I needed to play after playing a lot of Assassin's Creed games. It's not at all grindy or particularly particularly labor intensive, but it does require a lot of strategic and logical thought, and there's something just ridiculously satisfying in pathing something out efficiently to complete a task. You know, it's the Wilmot's Warehouse itch scratch as well, to compare it to a game that I know Dave really likes as well, where just everything in its right place, exactly the way you would want it type of game. So yeah, I this is a big recommend from me, I would say, for the both of you, because I think you both get something out of it and you both really enjoy it.
How challenging are you finding it in some of the later puzzles? And is it the kind of puzzle game where if you try and brute force it, you can, or does it do anything in place to make you less likely to try and brute force it and actually try and apply logic and reason and whatnot?
Yeah, you can't really brute force it. So, like I say, it paths out the order that you need to use the pieces. So to solve the puzzle, there is pretty much usually just one way of doing it. Even if you can slightly, twist the way that you would do it in terms of, okay, if I have my turn here or I have my straight here, but either way they will lead to the same conclusion basically. So you can't really brute force the game. You do have to figure it out. You do have to think about it logically. And I kind of appreciated that, because it makes you aware that it's not your standard sort of building sim. It is a puzzle game, despite it appearing that way. So yeah, it works. It's one of those games that just has a very specific method and aesthetic, and it delivers them both very, very well. It reminded me a little bit of Unpacking, in the sense that I was enjoying doing all of the tasks, and there was a very, very pleasant soundtrack. That's the only thing that I haven't mentioned so far, is that even though it is very much a podcast game, like you can flip on a podcast, I would recommend leaving on this sort of really soft touch, jazzy, orchestral soundtrack in the background, because it's incredibly soothing. Not in a like annoying hold music way, but just in a sort of nice, you're out in a slightly fancy club or restaurant way, and there's just a nice little smattering of some pleasant music in the background to give a bit of atmosphere to it. Just a very good one of those, your sort of standard 8 out of 10, 4 stars out of 5 game, and it executes very well.
Can never go wrong with one of those.
Exactly.